Hey, Chad, it's good to catch up. It's good to see you and be able to have a drink in one of your awesome stores. I love always being in an El Gaucho somewhere, and so glad we could talk today.
Yep, I'm glad we get to too. And we're down in Tacoma, which is fitting, halfway between Seattle and Olympia. And
I've been to all your stores, but I know they're all great. But this is one of my favorite locations.
Yep,
This
it's a beautiful spot. Great
so
team.
Cool. You know, you and I've been working together for, I don't know, it's been going on 14 years now, probably.
Something like that.
We've seen a ton of change in the industry, and things keep changing. And I feel like for the third time in 14 years, the models are all changing again. And operators are coming to me and say, how do I redo this? How do I rethink? I'm getting a lot of questions on what you've done with the tipping side. If the average operator came up and talked to me and said, what exactly is Chad doing on the whole changing the tipping model or the approach or rewarding the servers? How would you describe what you're doing?
Yeah, well, ask Chad, I guess.
Let's ask Chad.
Yeah, I think, you know, the probably most shocking thing I'll tell people is that I don't care about minimum wage anymore as an issue. We left minimum wage behind as an issue that was going to impact us 8 years ago, almost 8 years ago to the date. And what happened is, again, this really started in Seattle with the passage of the $15 minimum wage, and I just looked at what that was going to do if we accelerated that out and ended up after 10 years. And I realized our two restaurants that were in Seattle at the time, almost all of their profitability would be absolutely wiped out. And that did not even look at wage compression for everybody else and all the other labor stuff that was happening. This is just on the servers and bartenders and bussers. And so we set out to find another way. And we happened to be working with some labor attorneys. We had gone through a class action around service charges. We were one of the first that got hit by that, and got to hang out with a bunch of labor attorneys. And one of the conversations turned into commissions. To kind of give you the quick formula of what we do is we have a model where there's two components. There's how we pay our people, and there's how we make money to pay our people.
So it's fair to say, is Chad doing commissions or service charges? The answer is yes.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And they're different, right? And even with our team talking through this, it took a long time for us to even change our language that, you know, service charge, we weren't distributing service charge, we were keeping that, and everybody knows the reason now why you do disclosures that say you keep all of it, because otherwise you end up in lawsuits. And so we'll hold the service charge component for a minute over here and talk about the commissions, because I think that's really the magic in one regard to what we did. So at the basic element, there's a formula. It's basically a base wage plus commissions earned over a payroll divided by a time frame of hours over a payroll cycle has to be greater than or equal to the prevailing minimum wage. So whatever is the highest minimum wage in Seattle, that would be now, January 1st would be $20 or whatever it is. And the big aha was that the base wage did not have to be minimum wage. Base wage plus commissions has to at least be greater than the minimum wage. And so in our model, our base wage has been set at a couple different levels, but it is either $5 or $1 an hour, depending on the person, and then 15% of their sales as commissions. And it's kind of a mind change, but what it has resulted in is our teams on the commission level and the hourly level, depending on which restaurant, you know, how long people have been working, are earning somewhere between $45 and $110 an hour.
Wow.
Right? So they surpass all the minimum wage. That's not even an issue. It's just that every hour is no longer counted. Like in Seattle, it's not counted at $20 an hour, and then I'm looking at the clock and trying to get these people off. It's now it's almost like having a tip credit back, but the servers are guaranteed that commissions. If we collect the money, we're paying them.
So if people are watching this, so they don't have to quickly go and rewind and say, what did he just say? Let's see if I heard that right.
Yep.
That you're paying a base wage, which is well below the minimum, and then you're basically doing 15% on sales. And that's their commission. Just like you would make a commission if you were in retail or in car dealerships or other places, they're making commission. Stockbrokers,
sales teams, Nordstrom's,
right.
In the holidays, they're commission.
So we're treating our front-end sales teams like front-end sales teams do in other industries.
Yep.
And let's worry about your commissions, because you've got people making over $100 an hour.
Yep, some of them are, yes.
Total package.
Yep.
That is such a different way to think about it, but it makes sense if we think about how we need to evolve as an industry. How long have you been doing this now?
So it's been 8 years since we've
with this model.
Implemented it. We actually sat down and engaged with our senior servers and laid out the issue. Laid it out P&L wise, what was going to happen to us if we didn't look at something different. And they got it. They're like, Chad, we got great jobs. We'd like to continue to do this and have health care and great 401k benefits. And, we offer health care at 25 hours a week, not at 30.
Right.
Right. And so they wanted to make sure they still had great jobs. They wanted to make sure we're healthy, because when the restaurants are healthy, we have money to invest those things. So we sat down, we modeled different models, had discussions, and I think the key is we did it with them and not to them. And I can't stress that enough. It was a conversation that went both ways. And out of that team, the two big asks that they asked for, they said, we get it, this model, we understand this model. We'd like two things from you as part of this. One was that when they were working by themselves or in a team, that they were going to get their sales commission not based on the whole restaurant. They're like,
gotcha.
I'm like, hey, no problem. Some of you sell more than others. I get it. Like, some people work. So they wanted to be compensated on individual sales,
on their performance,
not just the restaurant.
Yeah.
So great. I'm all with you. Your sales teams, that's how most sales teams work. And when we do big events, we compensate them differently, and they earn great money. When they team sell, they'll split their commissions. But so that was one, is it's not a floor sell and then everybody gets some depending on how long you stayed on the clock, right? We've seen models where that becomes a problem. The other is because other people had implemented service charges, fees, and other things, and then basically were abolishing tips. They asked if there could at least be an option for a bump. If they do a good job, could we also at least make a line that if they wanted to leave an additional gratuity or an optional, that they were allowed to do that if the guests wanted to? Because we had some experiences with some other restaurants that were absolutely emphatic, no, that they would not allow that. So I said, yes, great, we'll do that. But it's a privilege and not a right. So don't beg for tips, don't abuse it. If people want to leave, we're going to double check with the guest. And so that's doing it with them, right? And then we modeled for each server, we first did it in the Seattle locations. For each of the servers, we actually looked at what they made the previous year, what their hourly was. We modeled their sales, what they would make under the commission model, assumed a very small bump rate. Originally, we assumed no bump rate, and then transferred them over so that they would be at that earnings level.
Wow.
So that was the servers and bartenders.
For a lot of people, this is such a brain warp, right? Because the industry's been doing it one way before our time, right? So at least
100 plus years.
At least since World War II, if not, who knows what it was before then. So I think a lot of people hear this model, and I think you talked about it a little bit, but let's talk about it a little bit more. My servers will freak out. I think back to when I was my family's restaurants. If you moved one server station a table, right? You had a 2-week emotional battle with your servers about it's okay. It's just one table. I gave you another table. It'll be fine. So that hurdle in their mind becomes really big. Talk to me about the meeting was, you took your senior servers, or just all servers, or senior servers?
This began with kind of our senior servers.
Okay.
The ones that were most vocal, and we knew that they would ask the questions. They wouldn't be shy.
Right.
Like they weren't afraid that they were going to get in trouble for something. That they would have the confidence to say, hey, you know what, this doesn't work, or we'd like to see this. And so, yeah, that was that group on a couple of occasions, and that took about, I think that was about 3 months of kind of lunch and learns, modeling. Before then, we rolled to a bigger group, talked about it further with the entire service teams to announce what we were going to do. By that time, they already knew, because we also got the most talkative servers. And,
right.
you know, let's face it, this is a restaurant business, so
There's no
as
secrets.
soon as one person
there are
knows,
no secrets.
I mean, you can't even get to the office door and everybody knows. So there was some strategy in that. And again, that's that idea of like, be transparent, communicate, and do it with them. Talk to them and treat them like adults. They're professionals, right? This is how they make a living. This is how they pay their mortgage. So they need to be part of the conversation.
That's actually a great way to think about it, is treat them like career professionals, and you'll get engagement.
Yep, it's one of our core values.
But I think people could have easily said, okay, I'll meet with my servers, but you really did just more than that. You did like a 3-month strategy with lunch and learns to say, financial model, help me understand. This was a deep conversation, building a concept as a team.
Yep.
So there was buy-in.
Yep.
That makes a lot of sense, because I think some people might be skeptical that 1.5 hour meeting might have fixed it. You did a good job of doing more than that.
We had a whole team doing it. It wasn't just me, but yeah, it was, again, a conversation with.
Once that group of senior servers bought in, were they excited to sell it to the other team members who might be coming in later? Or
we didn't ask them to sell it to the other team members. We knew that they would talk about it and bring back questions. And so that's why it was initial ideas, concepts, go back, come with questions. Let's go through and let's like get in here. Nothing you say is going to be held against you, right? It's
right.
Like reading the Miranda rights. All good. Just like bring us everything, all the questions, all the concerns, so that we can allay those. And so by the third time, you know, we had pretty much flushed everything out. So then when we met at final to meet with the teams, we also talked about the other changes that were going to happen. And I think this is another, because what we did is we kept our sales team commissioned, and we turned our support teams into higher hourly positions.
And I'm going to ask more about that in just a second, because I was going to be curious about how the tip out situation worked, but let's stick with the servers.
I want to talk about the servers a little bit more, because I think one of the problems, one of the conversational issues that I have with our industry is somehow some people talk about the servers as if they make too much, and this is, you know, this inequality and all this kind of stuff between the front of the house, back of the house. I've always paid our back of the house well, and they're different positions. And so we didn't declare war on our servers. We declared, let's go to battle together with the model. Let's join hands. And I love my sales team. Without them, what do we got?
Yeah.
Right? Like a bunch of plates running around. So that team, I wanted to have the best paid sales team in the industry. I wanted to have high retention. I didn't want to lose anybody when we converted over.
So it wasn't how am I going to deal with their jobs or their costs. It was, I'm passionately want to save your jobs and your income. Let's figure out how to do this together.
Yeah.
You're right. That is a unique approach for some operators.
Yeah. So
But they're more likely to engage if they know that's where you're coming from.
We're the industry. Like, we created the comp programs, right? And so one of the things that happened, and this will end up on the support side, is we ended up finding out that we had some busters making $55,000 a year. This was 8 years ago. And we were worried about, at that time, paying $20 an hour for a line cook. And I'm like, this is insane. Like, really? So, so we just flipped a bunch of stuff on its head. We're like, listen, I'm going to have the top servers. I'm going to retain them. They're going to make great money. They're going to have a great career, just like my dad set out. This is a career. This is not just a pass-through. And then we could talk about the support teams and really taking a totally different path to recruiting and attracting many of the entry-level positions in our industry by doing something that was beyond an ad that said minimum wage plus tips.
There's a ton of operators who want to try something new, and if it doesn't go perfect in the first 2 weeks, there's an overreaction. And I would say you can still be wrong, but you don't really know until you've given it a test for a while. How long did it take once you rolled this out concept in a wide ivory tower, done well with engagement, then you had to go apply it? How long did it take to really know if this was going to work?
I believe I think we implemented it in June in the Seattle locations, had 3 months of data, and then we ended up flipping everybody in November of that year.
Wow.
Right? And so we had lots of discussions, modeling. Every day we looked at what the results were. We tracked everything through, and my commitment was that if there's something broke, we got the percentage wrong, we got a couple of the things wrong, we'll fix it, right? That was our commitment, is we'll get that fixed. But I also said, this is going forward, and I basically burned the bridge that we were not going to abandon service charge. And that, there would be 6 to 7% of the population that is adamantly opposed to tipping anyways. They're going to hate to be told they have to do a service charge. And I was okay losing those customers. But most of them just came back, because where else are they going to get great service like what we do? Right? Where else are they going to get some of the gaucho?
They're going to get the baseball steak.
Yeah, and the reality is, and when people asked, is almost a third of our business was service charge already, because we have large clients that we do private events, right?
Yeah.
So do you think that they're going to put up with schlocky service because somehow we're guaranteed this service charge, and now we're just going to fitz around and not take care of a guest?
So you committed up front, which I think, again, if we're helping people understand how to make change, and this is a scary change.
Oh yeah.
You came back at that quarter mark and look at the numbers. Did you meet with that senior team again and say, here are the results? Or were the results
they had been meeting a long way with the managers, with my director of ops, ops teams, just check in, see how it's going. We also got to see where their bumps were, and they were much higher than we thought they would have been, even with us checking with the guest on any additional gratuity that was, or optional gratuity that was left. And so we were able to really just work with data.
Gotcha.
And we had a little rumblings in Portland, and so we kind of dug through, and we have a saying, one of our credos is data, not drama.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're like, okay, well, let's look at the data. Someone was saying, well, they're not making as much. We went through, we started going through the data. We're like, every single person here is making more than they were before under the old model. Turned out we had missed and not taken care of in the correct way our captain team.
Oh, okay.
And so we fixed that. I was like, oh, okay, great, right? And so because because of the tip outs and different things that we weren't doing at that time, we had to bump the commissions, and so, but the actual servers and the bartenders, it went awesome.
If you were to guess now that you're 8 years in, when any of your servers go back, or do you think this is the way?
I had a server retire last year.
Yeah.
She'd been with us. She left for a couple years, came back, so almost 25 years. And she was like, Chad, why didn't we do this from 20 years ago?
Because they're consistent. Do they know what they're gonna?
Another server, I won't say his name because otherwise I'll make him famous. He's already famous enough. But longtime server, 22 years, 23 years with us. From the beginning. And he's like, Chad, I didn't know how good this program was and how much I prejudged tables until I didn't have to. He goes, all I have to do is practice my craft, right? And I get paid just like a normal person, right? And if I do it exceptionally well, they might even leave me a little bit more. It's so much less worry about the judgment on both sides of the table of people, right?
Yep.
Because when people come in, we don't know You know, you hear an accent and you're like, are they gonna European and pretend like they don't know we tip? And we just leave all that behind. It's like, practice your craft, you get paid, you don't have to worry. And what a relief that is compared to,
So
you know,
actually,
like I've got a 6-top and a 4-top and a 3-top, and that's my entire life for one of the servers.
uh-huh.
But what if one of those just stiffs you,
Yep.
right? Like, well, that's not nice. And if it wasn't an issue of service or kitchen, you know, like we win as a team and we lose as a team. So it can't be just on the server.
Completely remove that fear of being stiff or judging your customer.
Just take care of them.
And all I have to do is provide the great service and
That's
the
the
awesome.
heart of hospitality. That's what they want to do anyways.
Right.
Yeah.